One of the major things that people are concerned with right now is the sequester, a series of budget cuts that must take place. The New York Times reports on March 8th that over $85 million must be cut from the budget for us to maintain any sort of semblance of government responsibility. But as a result, we're seeing a lot of cuts from different programs, and the economy is ultimately suffering. So people are trying to find perhaps a different way in which we could look to ultimately salvaging the economy. So if we were to delay the sequester, people are questioning what other methods we could do. Delay to the sequester leave any hope for a bipartisan budget compromise by the end of next year. So the answer to this question is sadly no. There are simply too many differences, party affiliations that are getting in the way, and not enough value on compromise. So first, we have to look to how there are way too many differences for us to ever reconcile them. Take, for example, the view on the sequester itself. Republicans are looking to it as a good thing, something that could benefit the economy. As the Washington Post reports on March 8th, many Republicans see the silver lining in the sequester. Although we have seen detrimental effects on the economy right now, many are speculating that in the future it will have positive impacts and will ultimately be necessary for us to save the economy. Now, the problem is that the Republicans are seeing lots of benefit in the sequester. Democrats, on the other hand, are taking a different stance. The CNN reports on March 8th that Democrats view the sequester as a waste of time and a waste of funds. Obama and the White House are fighting the sequester as hard as they can to make sure it doesn't pass and that the impacts aren't going to be detrimental. So we see that Democrats like Obama and those in the Senate are ultimately opposing the sequester and simply can't find any value in it, whereas the Republicans themselves are looking to the actual value and actual benefits of the sequester. However, then we have to look to the party affiliations that are getting in the way. Simply because they're Republican and simply because they're Democratic, many people are having opposing viewpoints. The Hill reports on March 8th that right now we're seeing many people who base their ideas on the party they serve. For example, 72% of all Republicans say that the economy is worsening, while 26% of Democrats say the economy is worsening. Now, while we should be seeing perhaps equal rates in the number of people that view the economy as going down, we see that actually the Republicans are viewing the economy as much worse off than the Democrats, perhaps because they have Obama in the president's seat, and the Democrats are trying to find some sort of benefit within the economy and say that the economy is actually getting better. Furthermore, The Hill continues with its report on March 11th, saying that 22% of Democrats view the sequester as potentially good, while 88% of Republicans say that for sure it will have positive impacts in the long term. Thus, we can see that while we have parties that have such opposing viewpoints, that they are ultimately not willing to compromise simply because they have their own party's views that are getting in the way. But finally, we have to look to the fact that many people view compromise as being weak, as something that is undesirable. As the Political reports on March 11th, right now, the attitude of American politicians is that compromise is for the weak, for those that lack political gumption to support their own ideals and their own ideas. As a result, many people see that compromise is not desirable and compromise is not something that they are looking to in the future, despite the fact that compromise right now could be the best policy and the best action for all of us. Take, for example, all the actions the Republicans have taken within the past year. As the New York Times reports on March 7th, the Republicans have tried to block Obama and the Democrats at every turn, regardless of what the policies are. As a result, we're seeing a lot of lack of progress and the paralyzing of Americans simply because they are not willing to compromise on their views. These were demonstrated in, take for example, the debt ceiling last year that failed to be raised in time. While the same thing didn't happen this year, there were clear repercussions that perhaps were ultimately deterring the Republicans from doing the same thing again. But they've still been barring a lot of Obama's progress, and they've still been hindering Obama at every turn that they see possible. So we can see that compromise for the Republicans and for even the Democrats is something that is not desirable and is not going to be accomplished anytime within the near future. So will a delay in the sequester ultimately result in a bipartisan budget compromise by the end of the year? The answer is sadly no, it will not. Because first, they have simply too many differences to reconcile. Second, the party affiliations are ultimately going to be influencing their views and getting in the way. And third, compromise is something that is undesirable and something that will not be achieved without some sort of other policy preceding it. Sadly, the sequester is doing real damage. The Washington Post reports on March 11th that right now people are becoming more and more desperate. We see more unemployed from the already high 7.7 unemployment rate. Because the sequester, an $85 million budget cut, is simply going to be too much for some people. Children of America are suffering, and many children are living with more unemployed parents. We're seeing a lot more jobs being cut. The government's overall slash cuts are simply not doing good for the economy. So hopefully the Republicans and Democrats will learn in the future how to get along and how to simply make sure that the government functions properly.